Perfect. Good deal. All right, I think we're going now.
Yeah. So tell me about yourself, Brent.
Oh,
What's your background? Tell me about yourself.
yeah. Okay. So let's see. I always struggle with how far to go back. So I grew up in Kansas City, and I went to college in Mid-American Nazarene University, which is a suburb of Kansas City. And that's where I grew up. Both of my parents were college professors, so it kind of made sense to go to the school where I could get free tuition at the school that they taught at. So I ended up staying in Kansas City and went to the school that they taught at, and then went away to do graduate work at Wheaton College, where I did a master's in clinical psychology, and that was a really fun experience. I actually met my wife, my now wife. We've been married for 19 years. Met her when I went away to graduate school. She was still living in Kansas City, and so we did the long distance thing. Back then, you could fly between Kansas City and Chicago for like $39 each way. I mean,
Wow.
those were the good old days, you know? And so that was just a blast. The dating relationship that we had, we'd see each other about once a month, and just got to know each other really well from a distance, and then ended up getting married a couple of years later. So
Awesome.
yeah, after that, I ended up going to Walden University and doing a PhD in health psychology. I was really fascinated by the brain and by my master's degree was about talking to people and dealing with therapy and in the moment being with people with where they're at. I was really interested in the brain and how it functioned and wanted to learn more about biopsychology and neuropsychology. And then actually, when I was going through that program, we had a daughter. Her name's Mia. She's 16 now, and we had a second daughter. Her name was Marley, and she got really sick while I was working on my dissertation. And so she ended up having brain cancer, and she
Oh,
fought that
wow.
diagnosis for about 2 years. When she passed away when she was 3.5 years old. So during that period of time, it was really formative, I think, in my own development, professionally even, of like getting back into the room and doing therapy with people. So it was kind of an interesting blend, like going into teaching because I teach graduate counseling, and that's my area of expertise. But I also have this background in neuroscience, so it makes for a really fun teaching environment of being able to explain sort of the reasons why we do what we do, and having this blended interest of not only being able to do talk therapy, but also neuroscience as well. So
Wow.
um, I went back to teach at the university that I did my undergraduate work in, and it was fun to be back in that same place. And I taught there for about 5 years. They also did postmaster's certificate programs there, and so
Mhm.
again, going back to the free tuition deal, I thought, why not go ahead and do these, and then that would help me with supervision with students. So I am a registered play therapist. I did postgraduate work in play therapy, and also did postgraduate work in sexual addiction. So the two are like totally unrelated, but I think some unintended consequences happened, like going through that program in sexual addiction treatment. People caught wind of that in the Kansas City area, and that ended up being a large part of my caseload. So, while I really enjoyed the work and it was fulfilling, and my heart goes out to the people that are able to do that work and stay in it. I was feeling a lot of burnout, and so I retooled my practice, and I'm almost getting to the end of about me. Um,
Take
I
your
uh,
time.
I I was getting to the end of my uh, uh, during the COVID time. I was sensing a need to sort of retool my practice and what I was doing. And so
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
at that time, our son, so we have three children. Our son, who's now 10, was dealing with dyslexia and ADHD. And so there's a huge gap in service where I am in Kansas City. I live in a suburb of Kansas City up north now, and opened a clinic part-time to help kiddos who are struggling with attention and focus issues as well as anxiety issues, particularly related to academics. So it seems like a really specific niche, but there's a real need for it. And so I've had a really positive response since I opened this clinic last June. So I mean a year ago, June.
Wow,
So
that's
that's
awesome.
that's where I'm at now. So I'm teaching full time at a different university now. I've been there for about 5 years. It's Indiana Wesleyan University.
Uh-huh.
I
Yep.
direct their clinical mental health program, and then I also run this clinic on the side. So it's a
Wow.
blast. Yeah.
You are just what I think of when I think of growth mindset, right?
Mhm.
Somebody that just wants to take on challenges, but also somebody that sees a larger picture outside of themselves to help other people, right?
Mhm.
So you seem to be living your purpose, your mission, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think going back to that piece where our daughter was ill really set the stage for what do I want to do with my life and what
Yeah.
is what is my purpose here? I think it's great work with what I was hoping to go into, like maybe work in a clinic to do research on brains, but like I also have found a lot of fulfillment in just being present with people and in the room with people, doing therapy, and I've just found it to be very, very rewarding. And I love working with students too and helping them with their own professional development.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Why do you do what you do? Was it your daughter that was ill that kind of jump started this new drive for you?
I think so. I think I'm also a spiritual person, so there's also this calling, that I
I
felt
love
from
that.
God, and
Yeah,
so
I love
like
that.
that's originally what sent me down the path of like I wasn't exactly sure what it would look like, but I did study theology and psychology, and I thought the marriage of those two is really significant because a lot of people, when we think of health and wellness, we think of diet, we think of exercise, we think of, these positive connections with other people. But like, I also think that spirituality is one of those pillars of health and wellness that is often, doesn't go recognized. And so, I think that calling is the thing that really brought me into where I am now. But then also my daughter being ill has just further clarified that for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And we all have these things happen to us in our lives, and sometimes they are horrible, sometimes they're hard, but it's about the lessons that we learn along the way, right?
Yeah.
And developing us into who we were meant to be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, I think that there are those formational things that I just shared a post in LinkedIn not too long ago about how I felt really nervous and uneasy speaking in front of people when I was in college. And so, there's a number of different directions you can go with that. You can shy away. Like I could have chosen a career that maybe would have suited my insecurities better by maybe working a desk job somewhere, but instead I decided to push myself and like, no, we're gonna take care of this, we're gonna get in front of people. And so it was over time that I decided to make that happen and put myself in uncomfortable positions where I just had to get over it. And so I've really come out of my shell, so to speak, in the last 20 years or whatever. But I've really enjoyed that aspect of growth mindset versus being stagnant and fixed in a mindset. So
I love that.
yeah,
I preach that so often because when you get out of your comfort zone, as you know, that's when you take off. If something is uncomfortable, guess what's going to happen? You're going to grow by doing it.
exactly,
And if something challenges you, it develops you even more, and it helps you find your purpose, right?
exactly.
Because you have a unique purpose on this planet. You have a unique story. Only one person has had your experiences, and it's almost selfish to keep it to yourself because you could help inspire so many others who are secretly going through struggles similar to yours that don't maybe realize they have a voice, that are afraid, that think they're alone, that would do anything to have a source of inspiration. And if you kept it to yourself, that person would never be inspired to live to their purpose, right?
Absolutely. I think the older I get, the more I'm realizing that too. I mean, like I'm bald now. I'm in my middle age stage of life, and like I just think to myself, that I have done a lot of work to improve myself, but also to educate myself in a lot of different areas. And what good does that do to hold all of that information in my head if I'm not giving it away, if I'm not sharing it, if I'm not helping other people grow? And so I think this second half of my life, I'm really trying to move into this area of focusing in on building a legacy. Like, what does it look like to leave something to the people behind me? And I think I've sort of started that process by teaching, and being able to have a voice in other people that will hopefully carry them into their career and make an impact in their life, but also like what can I do, with my children, with the talents that I have, so that I'm not hoarding those things. And I think that that's a message for anybody, that may listen to this, that don't store away those gifts that you have, because they could be very useful for other individuals. And I think that people's insecurities keep them from sharing those things that they have inside of them that may be very beneficial for others. And so
Absolutely.
I've really focused on, and I don't know why I've taken to LinkedIn the way that I have over the last month, but I think part of it has to do with the fact that I want to pour into other people, and it's a convenient way. I mean, it's just on my computer on my
Yeah,
own time, but it's a convenient way to let people know that there's someone out there that cares about them, that there's someone who's supporting them, rooting them on. That is, I think it's not about me, it's about the other person, and I think that that's very meaningful. I mean, it provides meaning for me, hopefully as much as it does the other person.
absolutely. And that's why I love LinkedIn too. It's a hobby.
Mhm.
So when people ask me what my hobbies are, that's one of the ones I was
Right?
maybe lame. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
But what I like about the platform is that you can spread your message to a really wide audience and help other people. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, your LinkedIn header, it actually says positivity spreader, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's actually why I think we connected. I saw that and I said, I've just got to connect with Brent. He seems like a great positive guy, right?
Right, right, yeah.
But what is it? What is it
I
about
don't
positivity for you? Like, why is that so important to spread that?
well, I think it's one of those things that you work your whole life to have a certain title, and that goes right after your name. And I don't think that I want to be known as, X, Y, and Z. I would want to be known first as someone who's influencing people in a positive manner. So I think that that's
Wow.
the reason why, like, after it's all said and done and the education's over with, I don't think that's what I was actually searching for. I don't think that I wanted that as part of my identity. I think I wanted my identity to be more of someone who's helping other people along and not just thinking about myself. And so, really, for me, in the same way, I think LinkedIn has become a hobby for me, just because um, I, I, I don't have like an intention. It seems like everybody's got motives for why they're on LinkedIn. That could be to advertise something, it could be to sell something, it could be, and that makes sense. Like, none of those things are bad, but I don't have any intention, and I think that catches people off guard sometimes. They're like, what's your angle here? Why are you being nice to me? And and really, it has nothing more to do than just, I hope you have a great day. I mean, I hope I can be a positive impact or force in your life.
Wow. That's such a beautiful message because you're so right on. I attend networking events like the one we talked about earlier. I attend one maybe two times a week. The first thing anybody says is that this is not a pitch session, right? This is a get to know you session and a value added session. And I think so often on LinkedIn it gets misplaced. Like we think we're supposed to be pitchy and salesy, but people don't want to be sold to. People
Hmm.
want a relationship, right?
Hmm. Right.
And people want that human connection. And it's so important. And that's why I really like connecting with positive, like-minded people who are growth oriented, who really just want to help add value to others.
Hmm.
And I think that when you add value to others, you inherently grow as well, both as a professional, as a person. But it's that reciprocity, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the relationship piece, I would be way more open to buy a product or a service from someone who I have a relationship with, as opposed to someone that just cold calls or, you don't have a relationship with. So, I mean, it makes sense to build relationships the way that we do on LinkedIn. So,
absolutely.
that's
No,
great.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So no, it sounds like you've had a really interesting growth journey and your story arc. What another thing that I really like about this conversation is that you don't identify yourself based on your education alone.
Hmm.
I talk to executives all the time, and when I ask them about themselves, they immediately rattle off their resume or other things, and they don't even tell me about who they are as a person. And
Sure.
then it's 25 minutes later, I'm like, you haven't actually told me who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we self-identify and put our who we are into
Hmm.
our company or into our background or education, but you're so much more of a person and an individual than just a title or just a education, right? You've had an incredible journey, especially with your daughter and with your son,
Hmm.
that's so relatable to so many people,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I know like my introduction probably wasn't the most inspiring or capturing, but like rather than rattle off a bunch of achievements, like I want to tell Marley's story. Like I want to tell
Yeah,
my daughter's story because I mean, one of the things as a parent who loses a child, like you never want people to forget about that person, and so even if they never knew that person. So I find myself talking about her a lot, not again, I don't want to be that have that as part of my identity as the dad whose daughter passed away from cancer. At the same time, I think it's very important for me to share that she's a significant part of my story, and
yeah,
it's not just about achievements, it's about some really hard things that I've gone through. And I think when you open up with a vulnerability like that, it helps connect you to people faster, right? And I think a lot of people do put on this shell of I'll just tell you about the things that are safe or the things that will keep you comfortable. I know that it's not the most comfortable thing to listen to either when you're in a conversation with someone, but I think that vulnerability helps to say, I'm letting my guard down with you and I want to connect with you. I want you to know me and I want to know you. And I think that's the fundamental need that people have of just being known and also wanting to know others. So yeah, it is all part of the process.
so I love that. And going back to your growth journey as a person and as a professional too. You mentioned you were terrified of public speaking. It's something I've talked about before.
Uh,
When I like used to raise my hand in class, my voice would literally stop working. I don't even know how that's physiologically possible.
right, right.
It stopped. It would literally just cut off. I'm like,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and now I'm much more open to it because I got out of my comfort zone, right? So, how did you do that though? I mean, because that's not easy, Brent. I mean, how
Mhm.
did you pull off the band-aid and did you just
Mhm.
jump into it or what'd you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my symptoms would be I would get red and splotchy. Like I get red all over my face and all over my neck would turn red and
Yeah.
like it was awful. And then of course my palms would be sweating and I would be breathing fast and the whole nine yards. But I don't know. I think it's one of those things that I can remember you have like these sort of tryouts. The first place I ever taught for, I got my foot in the door with teaching. It's kind of an interesting field with teaching because everybody wants you to have experience, but how do you get experience from the get-go, you know? So
Right.
I was able to get on with University of Phoenix. They had a ground campus in Kansas City, and so one of my friends had taught for them, and so we went to this interview thing, and there's this group of people, this milieu that's sort of like all interviewing at once, and they have to give a presentation to the whole group. And so I can remember being really nervous during that event. But the class sizes ran about 10 or so, so it wasn't too threatening. And then so I think it was just sort of easing into the process. And then I found my voice, and small class sizes, end of course surveys, were good. Those were a confidence builder, and then just gradually worked up the audience, and then I was teaching kind of from University of Phoenix. It went to junior colleges, so I started teaching at a junior couple of different junior colleges in the area, and those were pretty big classes. So those courses ran about 50 to 60 people in a class. And then I just kind of make a joke about, when I was teaching, it seems like I had parking passes, so I could park in just about every college parking lot in the Kansas City area, just because I was making this large circuit to all the different schools just to gain experience. But
Yeah.
it was exhausting, but it was also really rewarding, and the things that I learned during that time.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing. I'm gonna ask you one off the cuff question.
yeah.
What do you have any advice out there for anybody seeking to develop themselves, seeking to grow as an individual, seeking to just become the best version of themselves? Do you have any like
Hmm.
sage wisdom you can share?
I don't know if it's sage wisdom, but I used to, this kind of dates me as well, but when I was going through my doctoral work, I was commuting back and forth to work, and this is before Audible or MP3 players or anything like that. So I would put books on CD on hold at the library, and I would go pick them up, and I would listen to them to and from on my commute. I just got through so many books that way. And now technology has allowed us with Audible to be able to listen whenever we want at the palm of the tip of our fingers, So um, I think listening to books is a wonderful way to grow yourself. I
Yeah.
also think making space for yourself, like some of the most um, successful leaders usually will cut themselves off from the rest of the environment for like 30 minutes a day. And I think that that's a really wise thing to do. If you are, no matter how busy you are, if you can block off like 30 minutes a day just to sit with your thoughts, it really helps to spark creativity and think through some things that may be really difficult or stumbling blocks in your way. So making space for that, I think, is a really wise thing. I also think professional networking, being a part of professional organizations is really important. So, with me as a counselor, I'm involved with the American Counseling Association of Missouri. I've been on their board, and just been very involved with that. And that's been a really rewarding experience too.
That's awesome. I'm a huge believer in Audible. I share the same passion.
Yeah.
I don't listen to news anymore. I listen to books on, even if I'm working out and I'm on the elliptical machine or something like, it's Audible, right? I'm constantly feeding myself knowledge,
Mhm.
and that's a huge source of growth. But I love everything you said. I think you're going to do great things on LinkedIn and inspire a huge audience, but more importantly, help others to um, help others to see the light, be a positivity spreader, and be a source of inspiration for many who feel like they don't have a voice. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate our time today, Brent.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it. And I know that you have a big following, and so it's really just fun to be able to meet with you and connect with you, just to even learn learn how you do it, you know? I think it's been a pretty awesome journey for yourself as well.
Yeah. Well, that'll be part 2.
Part
So,
2, yeah.
yeah. Part
Very
1
good.
was about you, part 2
Yeah,
will be about us,
okay.
me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Very good. Well,
But
thank you.
yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, and hope
Okay.
you have a great weekend.
All right, you too.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye.